And now I'm going to finish talking about the scientific method, about just a few questions that we have in the quiz. So a scientific procedure undertaken to make a discovery, a test a hypothesis, or demonstrate a known fact is a procedure to undertake to make a discovery and test a hypothesis. It will be to test hypothesis. You always do experiments. Yeah, the only way to test a hypothesis to to make experiment.
So if you remember the video lectures, and if you read the textbook, they show that in the beginning scientists uh, go to the field or they make observations in different places, and then this led them to ask questions, and then these questions led them to us to make hypotheses, to make predictions, and the only way to test them is using experiments. Yeah, so here the only answer will be experiments. Theory and law, they are when you have a lot of facts, you have done a lot of experiments, they are a different level. And hypothesis is when you still don't have, you just have a question, a prediction. Um, and so this is not the answer, and these are not the answer. The only potential answer will be experiments. Well, now this one. A series of steps followed to solve a problem is experimental guidelines, investigation, the scientific method, or the standard procedure, and the answer will be the scientific method. As we watch in the video lecture, um, in studying nature, scientists make observations and then form and test hypotheses. So remember, these tests to make hypotheses and to test them is fundamental. And science, the word science is derived from the Latin one that means to know, and rather than a subject, science is a way of learning that indicate always these different steps from observations to question hypotheses and test those hypotheses, analyze those, and make conclusions that will lead you to make more hypotheses and have more experiments. So remember, I know that we generally talk about science as a subject, but more than that, science is a way of learning that is always ask questions and use experiments to test those hypotheses. Okay, and a scientific theory is a well-supported concept that has a broad explanatory power, a poorly supported idea. So a scientific theory definitely is not a poorly supported idea that has a little backing but might be correct. This is definitely not the same thing that a hypothesis. So in a casual terms, when you have a casual conversation, you can use hypothesis and theory in the same way, but remember, these are not the same thing. A scientific theory is not correct unless that it is several years old. Doesn't make sense. And a scientific theory is a concept that it once established in scientific literature can be modified but never rejected, even when new scientific method, procedure, data that don't fit. So remember, this is not correct. The only potential explanation it will be A. Remember, a scientific literature, a scientific theory can be modified. We have a lot of information backing it up, but if new evidence appear, it can be modified. So this one is wrong. The only answer will be A. Um, and now the last one. In which step of the scientific method do we use graph? So when you make a hypothesis, sometimes, but not generally, asking questions. Not very often. Communicating results, yes, and analyzing data. Yeah, in these two cases, you can use graph. So either one of these, it could be correct. So as you can see here, when you communicate the results, you use graph, and when you analyze those results, you can also use graph.